Welcome back. Tonight we settle into something that feels strangely familiar and deeply uncomfortable at the same time. A civilization so advanced it gave the world concrete, running water, and legal systems sophisticated enough that lawyers still study them today. And yet, the same civilization that engineered aqueducts stretching hundreds of kilometers also shared a single sponge on a stick between strangers in a public bathroom and considered this a perfectly reasonable arrangement. We are talking about ancient Rome. Before you get too comfortable, take a moment to drop your location in the comments. Where in the world are you right now, and what time is it? There is something genuinely settling about knowing that people from dozens of countries are drifting off to the same strange history at completely different hours of the day. Drop it below. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let yourself ease slowly into tonight. Let us begin with the thing that most immediately separates ancient Rome from modern life. The public toilet. Imagine you need to use a restroom. You push open a door and discover a long stone bench running along the wall. Carved into that bench at regular intervals are holes. No doors, no stall dividers, no curtains, no polite architectural gesture toward privacy of any kind. Just a row of stone openings, and seated at several of them, other people going about their business in the most literal sense of the phrase. This was the latrina. Roman public restrooms were communal by design and busy by necessity. Cities like Rome held over 1 million people, and everyone needed somewhere to go. The engineering solution was genuinely impressive. A constant flow of water ran beneath the seats, carrying waste away through the city's sewer system. The Cloaca Maxima, Rome's great drainage channel, was an engineering achievement. That genuinely worked. Water moved, waste disappeared. The system functioned efficiently by the standards of the ancient world. The experience of using it, however, was something else entirely. You would walk in, find an open seat, lower yourself onto cold stone directly next to whoever was already there, and resume whatever conversation you had been having on the street. Your neighbor might be a soldier, might be a merchant, might be someone you recognized from the forum who was currently in the middle of a strongly worded opinion about grain prices. Eye contact during all of this was apparently not considered unusual. Roman toilets were social spaces. People talked, argued, exchanged gossip, and debated politics. The bathroom was, in every practical sense, just another room where Romans gathered to be Roman, and then there was the cleaning arrangement. Romans did not use toilet paper. What they used was called a tersorium. This was a sponge fixed to the end of a wooden stick. After use, it was rinsed in a channel of water that ran along the floor in front of the seats, sometimes with vinegar or salt water added for cleaning purposes. Then it was set back in place for the next person. Shared by everyone, in rotation, the Romans saw this as practical. Water flowed constantly. The sponge was rinsed between uses. The system served a city of enormous size. From their perspective, this was infrastructure working correctly. From a modern perspective, the moment the words communal sponge appear, in a sentence, something in the brain quietly begins planning an exit strategy. Still, it reveals something important about Roman culture. Many things that we experience as intensely private, Romans treated as simply part of shared city life. Bathing, exercise, discussing contracts, going to the bathroom. None of these required solitude. In a city this crowded, solitude was probably the stranger experience. After the bathroom, Roman laundry feels almost logical by comparison. Almost. Across Roman cities, there were commercial laundries called phalanca. These establishments cleaned the tunics, togas, and cloaks worn by the urban population. Laundry was serious business in a crowded environment full of dust, sweat, and the general residue of dense city life. People needed clean clothes and frequently lacked the means or the space to wash them privately at home. The primary cleaning agent used in these laundries was urine. There is genuine chemistry behind this. Urine contains ammonia, which breaks down oils and loosens dirt from fabric. The Romans were not wrong about this. Ammonia is effective. In purely functional terms, urine was a reasonable solution to a practical problem. Large clay jars were placed at intervals around the city. Citizens contributed throughout the day. The collected contents were transported to the phalanca and poured into stone vats along with the garments to be washed. Workers then climbed into these vats and stomped on the clothes, working the liquid through the fabric. Standing in a vat of ancient detergent, rhythmically treading someone else's toga was a recognized professional occupation in ancient Rome. After sufficient stomping, the garments were rinsed with water, brushed, and sometimes treated with clay or sulfur to whiten the fabric. Clean, bright clothing emerged from a process that most modern people would refuse to enter voluntarily. The practice became so commercially significant that the Emperor Vespasian introduced a formal tax on the collection of urine from public sources. When someone objected to the origin of the revenue, Vespasian reportedly held up a coin and observed that money does not smell. The phrase became famous throughout the empire. The tax remained in place. Having established that Romans shared bathroom sponges and laundered clothes with urine, it becomes somewhat surprising to discover that they were also genuinely obsessed with bathing. In fact, bathing was central to Roman daily life in a way that still impresses historians. Every major Roman city contained massive public bath complexes called thermae. These were not modest neighborhood facilities. They were enormous architectural achievements that covered entire city blocks. Some contained gardens, libraries, exercise courtyards, massage rooms, swimming pools, and large heated halls. The baths of Caracalla in Rome could accommodate thousands of visitors in a single day. The bathing sequence was carefully structured. You would begin in the tepidarium, a warm transitional room that prepared the body, then move into the caldarium, the hot room where steam opened. The pores and heated pools invited you to settle in. Finally, the frigidarium offered a cold plunge that closed the pores and returned the body to alertness. Romans believed this sequence was essential for health. They were not entirely wrong. Regular bathing, movement, and the cold plunge have documented physiological benefits that modern wellness culture has enthusiastically rediscovered. Everyone bathed together, senators alongside soldiers, merchants beside philosophers. The nakedness involved was considered entirely unremarkable. The baths were a social institution as much as a hygienic one. Business was conducted there, friendships formed. Political arrangements discussed quietly over steam and warm water. Bath attendants helped remove dirt and oil using a curved metal tool called a strigil. Instead of soap, Romans applied olive oil to the body first, trapping dirt and sweat against the skin. The strigil then scraped everything away cleanly. The floors and walls were heated using a hypocaust system that circulated hot air through channels beneath the raised floor and inside the walls. A visitor would have felt warmth rising from the stone underfoot, a comfort that modern radiant heating has spent considerable effort attempting to recreate. Roman meals, for those who could afford to host or attend them, were conducted horizontally. Formal dinner parties called convivia were held in specially arranged dining rooms. The setup featured 3 large couches positioned around a low central table. Guests did not sit at the table. They lay sideways on the couches, propped on their left elbow, eating with their right hand throughout the entire meal. This posture communicated status efficiently. Sitting upright suggested you were a working person. Reclining meant you had the leisure to eat slowly, the servants to bring food to you, and the social standing to be invited to places where dedicated dining couches existed. The position announced all of this without anyone needing to say a word, which Romans would have found pleasingly economical. The meals themselves moved through several courses. Light appetizers first, then the main dishes, roasted meats, fish, vegetables, and sauces, everything seasoned heavily with garum, the fermented fish sauce that appeared in Roman cooking the way salt appears in modern recipes, meaning everywhere, in everything, in quantities that seem aggressive until you taste it and understand why. Wine flowed continuously, always diluted with water. Drinking undiluted wine was considered uncivilized, and Romans maintained firm opinions about this. The ratio varied by occasion, but 2 parts water to 1 part wine represented respectable restraint. Servants moved through the room. Musicians sometimes played. Poetry was occasionally performed. The evening stretched for hours, and guests grew gradually more horizontal as the night progressed until the distinction between dinner party and collective nap became a matter of philosophical interpretation. If you walk through the ruins of Pompeii today, which remains possible because volcanic ash preserved the city in 79 CE with remarkable thoroughness, you will notice the walls, specifically what is written on them. Thousands of inscriptions cover those surfaces: political endorsements, business promotions, declarations of love, insults directed at specific individuals, complaints about specific situations, jokes of varying quality, and observations about various people that those people would almost certainly have preferred go unrecorded. One inscription reads, roughly translated, "I am astonished, wall, that you have not collapsed under the weight of so much nonsense written upon you." Someone in ancient Rome was already exhausted by graffiti. 2,000 years ago. Political graffiti is particularly striking. Candidates for local office had supporters paint endorsements directly onto the exterior walls of buildings. Walking down a main street during election season would have meant reading campaign arguments as you went. Several survive intact in Pompeii, brief and direct, carved or painted into plaster in a manner that made deletion genuinely difficult. Taverns maintained their own layer of commentary, food reviews, assessments of the service, opinions on the wine, feelings about the proprietor, expressed with degrees of diplomacy that varied considerably from wall to wall, all of it preserved, all of it still readable. The impression is less of a distant civilization than of a very old message board. Same impulse to record and react. Same range of content from earnest civic opinion to baffling personal grievance. The medium was plaster and stone. The human behavior was identical. A substantial portion of Rome's population did not cook at home. Not because they lacked the desire, but because they genuinely lacked the kitchen. Roman apartment buildings called insulae were frequently 5 or 6 stories, tall, housing hundreds of residents in small units. Cooking indoors over open flame in densely packed wooden buildings created risks that the evidence suggests were frequently realized. Many units had no cooking facilities at all, so Romans ate out, constantly and everywhere. The solution was the thermopolium. These were street-level food counters built directly into the fronts of buildings, featuring a stone surface with large ceramic vessels embedded into it. Inside those vessels, prepared foods stayed warm through the day. Lentil stews, beans, cooked meats, vegetables and sauces, occasionally wine or warm drinks. A customer would approach, indicate what they wanted, receive it in a small bowl or wrapped in flatbread, and eat at the counter or while continuing down the street. The transaction was fast, cheap, and required no reservation. More than 80 thermopolia have been identified in Pompeii alone. Several still bear painted decorations depicting the food they sold. Ancient illustrated menus. The commercial logic was identical to modern fast food. Reliable product, fast service, accessible price, predictable location. Certain stalls had better reputations than others. Regular workers knew which counters to trust and which to approach, only when the alternatives were already closed. The street food district was loud, busy, and entirely recognizable across 2,000 years of distance. Here is the part that matters most. None of this felt strange to the Romans. The communal bathroom was just a bathroom. The urine laundry was just laundry. The reclining dinner was simply how you ate when you had done well enough to eat well. The graffiti was the ongoing public conversation. The thermopolium was lunch. Normal is not a fixed condition. It is a cultural agreement, renewed constantly by everyone around you, doing the same things in the same way without question. When everyone you know uses the tersorium, it is unremarkable. When everyone bathes together, communal bathing is just bathing. When the walls have always had writing on them, the walls simply talk. Future people looking back at us will face exactly the same problem. They will find the evidence, the years spent alone in metal containers moving through traffic. The small glass rectangles consulted approximately 100 times daily. The rituals around bitter bean water consumed before noon. The holiday messages answered from beaches. From sufficient distance, our normal will look precisely as peculiar as theirs does to us now. This is what ancient Rome genuinely offers. Not a lesson in how strange people used to be. A mirror showing how invisible our own strangeness remains to us. Marble temples tell you what a civilization admired. Bathrooms, dinners, laundry, graffiti, and street food tell you how it actually lived. Ancient Rome lived close to the visible surface of human behavior. Practical, communal, social, occasionally alarming, and deeply familiar. The Roman streets are far away now. The voices on the walls have gone quiet. Your breathing is slower. Sleep is close. Let it come.